Ask the Podcast Coach for January 4th, 2025.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music. That means it is Saturday morning. It is time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the schoolofpodcasting.com, and joining me right over there is Jim Cullison, except that's the wrong button. That's my screen. That's Jim Cullison. There we go. And it's a Christmas miracle. When I hit record, all the screens came together. I can see everything I need to see now, so that's good. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. A good way to start the new year, trying to figure out all this stuff. But we're here. We're live. Lots of folks in the chat room. It's good to be back. Welcome to 2025, and happy New Year.
Yeah, it's a weird thing on a Mac machine where you can make two desktops. And I hate the feature. I don't know how I turn it on, and I particularly do not know how I turn it off. So I had this thing where in Ecamm, like I'm looking right now at the interview screen, and I see me, you, and I see Randy Black waiting for us to go to the 3-person screen, and I see our chat room. But for like before, that's why we're late today. I could see Randy or I could see Jim, but I could not get Randy and Jim together. I could not get the interview screen on my Ecamm screen. It was very weird. And the only way you can calm yourself down is probably with a nice hot cup of Java.
For sure.
And of course, that lovely coffee pour is brought to you by our good friend Mark over at podcastbranding.co. And the beauty of Mark is, yes, he's an award-winning graphic artist, but he's also a podcaster, and he's just going to kill you with customer service. And what I mean by that is so many people, if you go to, I don't know, Fiverr or something like that, they're going to go, well, what do you want it to look like? And, you know, they basically tap into your marketing brain. Well, that's not your job. Your job is to make your show. Mark goes over, listens to your episode, checks out your website if you have one, and then basically asks you, like, what's the brand about? And then he makes a piece of artwork that matches that. It's amazing. You're not going to get that from somebody on Fiverr. Why are you the marketing person? That's their job. And so if you want to check it out, we've used him for Ask the Podcast Coach and many other of my shows. There's really only one place to go, and that is podcastbranding.co. And tell Mark that Dave and Jim sent you. And thanks for your support, Mark.
And of course, big thanks to our good friend Dan Lefebvre over there, based on a true story podcast.com. This week, Maria. So if you got through Raiders of the Lost Ark and the Temple of Doom and all the Indiana Jones stuff from the weeks before, Maria is now available for you. Brand new podcast. Is it based on a true story? And how much of it is? You can check it out today. Based on a true story podcast.com. Dan, thanks for your sponsorship.
What's weird is Maria, when I hear that, I think West Side Story. I'm like, was this a spinoff of what? No, it's just...
I don't know. That's a good question. That is.
I need to go listen.
Question.
That's it.
Yeah, you have to go check it out. Yeah, it's a 2024 movie, Maria. It's you have to go listen.
Yeah, this is not a sponsorship, but I just want to say thanks to Jody Krangle, because I'm using her mug today.
Oh, nice.
Because this is I still have kind of half a cold thing going on with my throat. It's kind of like scratchy and icky and things like that. And so I was making Airborne this morning, or as I call it, piss. It's yellow and doesn't taste very good. And I'm like, I got to start drinking piss again.
Emergency is a little better. It's like Tang from the old days. And
this isn't. It's not horrible. It's just not like,
All right.
Fix me up a cup of, Airborne. But meanwhile, we hope he's going to work. When we tried this earlier.
Let's see if it'll work.
Let's see. The one and only Randall Black from Bible-Bites.com. How's it going, buddy? And we don't hear you. But you look great, my friend.
You hear us, Randy?
Yeah, he can hear us. And I don't know that I have any control over Randy. If I click on this, nope, just that he's got a custom color.
You look good, Randy. You look good. You're looking great today. You're looking fresh and exciting.
Yeah.
Not that that's a Cool in the Gang song or anything like that, but it was.
Yeah. So
no.
I don't know if you can. Yeah. All right. Well, feel free to throw it in the chat. I'm not sure what's
Give
going
us
on.
give us your best, whatever,
Yeah.
thumbs up, whatever.
Yeah.
There you go. 2 thumbs up. Peace.
Yeah. Or go
right.
out and come back in. You could always try that. That might, when in doubt, the elves come through and fixes. So,
I wonder why.
yeah.
Bizarre.
There you go. Stephanie says just downloaded Bible Bites 2
There you go. Yeah.
from the last school of podcasting. Yeah, there were a lot of really. I do the thing where it's what's your favorite podcast and why. You know what I just realized? I asked you that question and then didn't pull your answer and put it into the show. So that's kind of
That's okay.
annoying.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Nah, that's all right.
But
I get enough airtime. I get enough airtime with Dave Jackson. I think I'm fine.
All right, we're gonna try this again. Drum roll, please. Coming to the stage. It says, wait a minute. I saw a thing where it said you're in the green room, but I've assigned you to guest 2. So go ahead and say something. Yeah, I cannot hear him. Let me make sure there's nothing.
Riveting audio.
It is riveting audio right now. So I will be cutting this out later in the. Yeah, it's.
What?
I mean, I'm.
Will you? Are you sure you will? All right.
Yeah,
Randy, send us a note, Randy.
Yeah,
we gave it a try.
It's really weird. But I have. I'm doing the exact same thing I do every week. People come in, I go assign to guest 2, I go to that screen, and voila. So,
yeah, and you hate to, you hate to mess around with it too much, but sometimes the universe just doesn't favor you, and you just move on.
Yeah, that's it. Todd the Gator said, I followed a lot of new podcasts from that last episode of the SOP. Yeah, the one is called The Bugle. That's the one I haven't gone and checked out yet. That is a very sarcastic look at the news. And I was like, oh, I'm all about that. I get all my news now. I don't get any news from mainstream media. I watch a guy on YouTube called The Philip DeFranco Show, who is very left-leaning. And then I listen to No Agenda, which is right now kind of right-leaning,
for sure.
Yeah. And so I'm like, all right, let's do that whole 9 yards. Well, shall we jump in? Here we go. I wanted to share 2 pieces of audio. Before processing and after. Send that to me. Maybe we'll play it next week. That'd be fun. A demonstration of.
Throw up what he said in chat, because I think this is important, right? I want to share 2 pieces of audio, one before processing and one after Auphonic, a demonstration of not sleeping on Auphonic and their processing and noise removal. We've been using Auphonic now at work for a month, maybe 2. We cut over to it from Otter for our transcriptions. And then, by the way, Auphonic does not sponsor this podcast.
Right.
We'll just say that right up front. But if they did, that'd be awesome. In the transcriptions, my editor has just been happier than a lark because of the way they, Auphonic does some weird things with it. They try to get really smart and fancy with your transcriptions and change things automatically for you. And that was causing lots of problems for him. And just going to kind of a standard set of transcriptions. Not as many features as Otter on the transcription side, the library, and sometimes you can't give it keywords to automatically fix and some of those kinds of things. But the bonus is we've been getting, the audio processed. And so I'm getting 100% of our stuff now run through Auphonic. And Randy, I agree with you. You can't sleep on it. And I know they're not supporting the local version anymore, right? If you have it, it's kind of done, I think.
Yeah.
And then most of it's via the web. Very reasonable. Those guys are great. I've already sent in 2 tickets and they got right back to me on tech support. So, Randy, I agree. Don't sleep on Auphonic if it's been a while and you want something to fix your audio. I mean, I did I think I mentioned this on the show. I did some audio where the guy was tapping nervously in the background on his desk. I could just hear the tapping sound. Auphonic, gone. Just took it out. Like it was amazing. So I'd agree with you, Randy.
Yeah, it says I only have to drop the audio file to a Dropbox folder, and then Auphonic picks it up and processes it all. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I haven't used it in a while because I have a bunch of plugins that do that now. And you just when you said that, I'm like, that's the one thing on my PC that I don't want to lose when I get rid of my PC. Is I have Auphonic. Yeah, it's so funny because the longer I hang on to this thing, the slower it gets. So that's always fun.
It's sensing its death, by the way. That's what's happening. You're not using it as much, and it's sensing its death. So it's just slowly, like a person who doesn't exercise very much. You just get
That's
a little
it.
slower, a little slower.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the desktop. I think they have deprecated the desktop, and they're
Well,
no
yeah.
longer making updates to it anymore. And
It
so
was,
I
it
just
was a
go with the
bad
web.
business model. You know what I mean? They basically like, here it is.
Different,
There's no
yeah.
monthly fee, and you could
Right,
just
right.
and the whole thing
Yeah.
was as long as you're not using it for, I forget what it was. If you were like a company, and then they're like, oh wait a minute, everybody's lying. They're saying, no, I'm just a solo person doing my
Oh,
thing,
for
and
sure.
you know,
For sure they were
yeah,
lying. Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
So
Yeah, it's like, well, fix that. Well, that's a better model anyways. Listen,
yeah,
we want to support folks
yeah.
that are doing these kinds of things. And it's like it's not terribly expensive. I've got my own
Well,
version of it. I have a version at work that we use now. And I bought some extra credits. Like I bought an extra hour of credits
yeah.
or more than that, 100 hours of credits I bought just to have, because I knew some months we would go over and I didn't want to have to go back to the well. So yeah, it's a
Yeah.
good model. Good system.
If anybody knows, Chris from castahead.net, does
Yes.
Auphonic transcription
Yeah.
identify speakers?
It doesn't have, yes, it will say speaker one, well, speaker zero, which is funny. So speaker zero, speaker one, speaker two, they have an automatic identification there. You can tell it what's the order, and then in the transcriptions, it'll fix that for you. One of the nice things about Otter was that it had kind of a memory of people
Yeah.
you'd upload before, right? Auphonic doesn't have that. They're using a different kind of system for it. But you can go in and say, hey, this audio had two speakers. It's me and Jillian, and this is the order they're in, and it'll get it right.
Yeah. Stephanie says they are great, though if you start buying credits, they then stop giving you the free 2-hour credit, which is a bummer. That is a bummer. But
Yeah.
I don't use it that much because, like I said, I have other tools for that. But on occasion, it's nice that they do have that free package. So that comes in handy. And the other thing about it not being a local piece of software, you can use it wherever you are. So if I'm on the road, I'm like, wait a minute, So, Chris says Doc Rock over at Ecamm uses Auphonic to edit his audio podcast without a DAW. It isolates individual tracks, removes noise. I'm not sure I'm ready to do that yet, but I'm interested to test it. Yeah. See, they keep adding stuff over there.
They do.
And I know when I worked at Libsyn, there was a thing where you would upload it. This one guy had it to where he uploaded his intro, and his intro didn't fade out. It was like, and now, here's Jim. And then he had an outro. And so he had the intro and outro there. He would just upload his, the middle of the sandwich. It would stitch it together and throw it on Libsyn. And it was like, and then the Auphonic thing leveled everything for him. So I was like, well, didn't realize it did that kind of stuff. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to try this today. So if you think it's weird, I'm going to go, our next topic is, and the reason I'm saying is our next topic is I want to see if Descript or whatever I'm using will kind of like, hey, we're changing subjects now, just to see. But this is from our buddy Ralph over at Ask Ralph Podcast. If you're looking for Christian finance advice, he says, I spend time writing a blog post for my daily show, and I want to promote the blog post for more engagement. It's on Podpage. Any ideas for promotion? I would promote the podcast, not the blog, and here's why. If they go over to the website, and I'm assuming your show notes are, a paragraph and a half and some links. If they click play on the player, and Jim, I'd love your opinion on this. Which one's going to make them stay on the website longer? Clicking play on the player, because they might go, nah, this one isn't for me, and stop, and then they're gone. Or if they go to the blog and they start reading it, I guess in both cases, if you read a paragraph and you go, this isn't for me, either one. But I would think the podcast player would have a better shot at keeping people on the website. What say you, Jim Cullison?
Yeah, I don't think many people are going to a web page and listening to a full podcast. That's just not. Some are.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Some are, but I think in most cases it's getting listened to on a phone when people are doing things. That's 100%. So I don't think that's his question. He does have a blog post and he wants to promote it. So what are the best ways? So we've got this post on Podpage. what are the best ways to get that promoted? And I don't know if there's any new ways to do it except the old school one. And Ralph, you know how to do this better than anybody. Pay to have it show up in places
Yeah.
if that's what you want to do. Or yeah, engage your own network to get that link out there and help promote it for you via social share stuff. I don't know how many people are reading blog posts anymore.
Yeah.
Like just reading them. Again, this goes back to the discussion we had with Ralph last week. I think today we're a search culture and we're turning into an AI search culture, which means people are they got a question, they're just throwing it in the AI or they're throwing it in search and they're just getting an answer. And they're not spending a lot of time, I think, going back and reading a lot of content. I don't know if that kind of content today is being followed mostly. There would the blogs had their day, right? Maybe 15 years ago, people would be faithful to go back and read those. We've got a lot more things now than we had then for folks to update stuff on. So I don't know, Dave. I don't know what, as far as promoting your blog posts, you got some thoughts?
Well, Stephanie has a great point. She goes, you can copy that blog and set up a Substack, which is an email list. You can add the Spotify links there. That's a way, since I'm assuming you can add any link. That's what I do. I mean, if you go to Podcasting Observations, that's my Substack. And Randy says Substack is vomiting. He goes, that business model will eventually come back to hurt them and everyone will be paying. Yeah. Here's the thing. I was watching a video yesterday on what are we going to do because website traffic is going to go like in the toilet because you're no longer going to show up in Google results because even now they're starting to throw Gemini results at the top of that. And this guy said, well, the one thing that doesn't have an algorithm and works, 30 years after its invention is email. He goes, if you think about it, the people that read your email signed up because they want to read your email. And he goes, and if you want to get to these people, granted, you're going to, if you get a 30% open rate, you're, a god. He's like, but if you want to get to people, maybe start an email list. And I was like, that's a good point. It's old and it's yesterday's technology, but there's nobody on your email list unless, you bought the list that doesn't want your stuff. So Ralph says, I'm focusing on the blog because it has backlinks and more data, which should be SEO juice. So that's why I want to promote it.
Well, should be SEO juice, but what is SEO juice? Like nobody really knows that answer. And, you'll hear from SEO experts. Yeah, you got to get these backlinks and you got to get people linking to your site and you got to get, I think the easiest way to become if you're going to play the SEO game, you got to spend some time becoming an SEO expert and you got to figure. Now, by the way, that whole world of SEO is changing. I don't know if I would spend a ton of time, the generative AI advertising space. I think I would give up on SEO. You do some things because it's still working. But if I was going to understand anything, I'd understand the new ad space that's going to grow up out of generative AI. And what will that look like? And how is search going to be affected by that? I think, Dave, there's going to be a day we're going to say, oh, remember like we used to say Alta Vista? We're going to say, remember when people used to search at Google?
Google, yeah.
I think that day, I think we're going to have a day like that. I'd spend my time getting to know that.
Google used to make really good stuff. But think about it. I forget who I was listening to. It might have been James Cridland. And they said, the last thing that really people still use from Google is Gmail.
Yeah.
Everything else they've started, they shut down. I mean, Google Podcasts was a great, simple app. It had 3% of the market. And they said the problem is like right now at Google, in fact, it's actually, I was surprised on how good it was. James Cridland on Pod News Weekly Review, and then they have an additional thing, like the extended dance version of that, like for interviews. And they put out an episode with our good friends Kyle and Sheila from Google Notebook on Podcasting 2.0. And James fed it a bunch of articles and stuff. And I'm here to tell you, it was good. It was a really good summary of podcasting 2.0. But it might have been, I can't remember who it was. Apparently, Google has Google Notebook. And now Google has another AI tool that is a competitor to Google Notebook. And you're like, this is such an example of the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And I was just like, that's really odd. But yeah, I think we're going to see traffic. It's going to be weird because then why do I need a website if I can't show up in Google? And I'm like, well, where are you going to send people? Hey, for more information, just find me on some other free service that might go away in 6 months. You're going to use your website to direct people to your home base. That's how I see it. Now, I don't think I'm going to get I'm still getting stuff from Google and social and things like that. I don't think Google's going to go away in 6 months, but
No.
already, we've got enough people. I still think it's kind of funny that people go to Google and in the search term, they put in the website address that they want to go to.
Yep.
And I'm like, you can just type that in the address bar.
Well, and the address bar is search too, right? I mean I think we've been doing that for 20 years, but
Yeah.
it is. Yeah, I think people's search habits are going to change.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jeff says, when I share video clips, I give links to both the blog post and the podcast. You have a ton of video content, Ralph. Yeah, he does daily. That's almost the thing I was wondering. It's like with a daily show, it's almost like you have to promote immediately after it's out because in 23 and a half hours, you got more stuff to promote. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like you have to like for me, a weekly show, it's like you promote it or you publish it and then you can promote it on social and then you can mention it on your email. Like I love to see what kind of traffic I could get from my email because my shows come out on Monday. My newsletter typically goes out on Friday. And I can see, did I get any kind of bump from my newsletter? But when it's daily, it's hard to measure what's working because it's like, here's the episode. And then, okay, here's another one. You're like, well, wait, which one did the thing? So I would be using a ton of, whatever UTM. I use Fathom and I'm now making links so that when I go into my stats, I can see, this came from, like, I'm even tracking, did this come from a chapter or did it come from the show notes? Or did it come from the website? Or did it come from the newsletter? Or did it come from Twitter? Anytime I link to my website, because I'm dying to see, like, okay, what's working here? Because, the times they are changing. Yeah. So
I confess to you in the pre-show, I've been getting, I've been installing a generator interlock connect to the house over the last couple months, and I've gotten rather obsessed about it. And so the latest obsession was the actual generator and what I'm going to use. I have one, but it's the wrong one. Anyways, doesn't matter. Is I've been getting obsessed about it when I go to the search, and I don't necessarily go to Google anymore. I just open the browser and type in the search I'm looking for. So if I'm using Edge, it'll take me to Bing. If I'm using Brave, it'll go somewhere else. I've kind of stopped using Google's browser. Even on Bing, when I'm looking for things, the results it brings back, hate to say this, they're YouTube videos. So YouTube has a very, very, very good tie into, if you want to talk about strong SEO, this is where, and Dave, I know you've resisted this a little bit, but you got to get your content out on YouTube. You have to. I know we've been holding back on that. Podcasts aren't YouTube. YouTube aren't podcast influencers podcasting. Look, if you want to do something out there, I don't think you can. I mean, if you just don't want to do video, that's fine. But if you want to be found, Ralph, I wouldn't write blog posts today. I would figure out how do I get this going on YouTube, because that's really where the search engines are finding things. I was talking with Ed on Sunday, Ed Sullivan, and we use Gemini. And Gemini has most favored nation status with YouTube because they're owned by the same company. It's amazing what it can find in those videos. Like stuff, I put very specific search terms that weren't in the show notes that brought results back, including podcast episode numbers in there. That was like, oh my gosh, this AI search is getting really, really good. And it was because it was on YouTube. And so I just can't, guys. We can't miss this. If you're resisting it, figure out a way to get your content on YouTube in some way. Like
Yeah.
figure that out.
I've definitely moved much further
Yeah.
because I watched some videos and I was like, and again, I always try to stay open to it. And there's part of me that's like, yeah, but then you got to feed the algo, and you're slave to the algo. And I'm like, yeah, but that's an automated sales tool that possibly will help you get an audience. And I was like, and on other platforms, you don't have that. And is it a crapshoot that you're going to hit the algo right? Yeah. But, as they say in the lottery, if you don't play, you don't win, And so I was just like, yeah, last night, it was funny. I was like, all right, I'm going to start. I just need to jump in. I'm going to start making YouTube videos that aren't, Ask the Podcast Coach.
Yeah.
And holy cow, we got a super chat. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's
Coach
weird.
Dave.
Yeah. Where's my, yeah.
I'll do it.
There we go. Yeah. So, but what was funny, because it was a 20-minute video. I was like, look, I'm not going to do a 5-minute video. I'm going to do a deep dive. And that's going to be, I think, my strategy on YouTube, deep dives. And it was 20 minutes. The first one was kind of janky, and I had bullet points on my teleprompter. And the second one was perfect, except I forgot to turn my microphone on.
Yeah.
Because with the Rodecaster, for me to hear stuff through my speakers, I have to mute my microphone. Because if my microphone is on and the speakers are up, because I'm deaf, everything's turned up, and it's just walls of feedback. So I have that setting. It's like, hey, if the speakers are on, turn off my microphone, or make sure your microphone's off to hear the speakers. And so I turned off my microphone, did another 20-minute presentation, got done. I was like, man, that was so much better than the first one, and hit play. And it's me just mouthing into the camera. And I was like, well, there you go. This is why it's called a learning experience. So talking about linking, Jody, I don't know if you saw, I'm drinking from your mug today. Thank you. Audio from the Audio Branding Podcast. I do direct people to my website with the play at the top. It's my website I want them to visit. Yeah. Ralph had a follow-up question. We got the chat is going crazy, but yes, thank you, Dave, for the $5 super chat. We appreciate that. Ralph said, so my follow-up is, how do I measure the blog posts? So let me bring up, I use a website. Now you can use Google Analytics. Nothing wrong with Google Analytics. My problem with Google Analytics is I don't need to know what Jim had for breakfast back in August of 2022. I just don't need that much info. And so if we, in theory, we're back to Dave can't see what you are seeing. There we go. This is the stats of the courses at the School of Podcasting. And so I can see this is people, I think, clicking on a buy link. But down here, I can see, I think, maybe I need to switch to a different website because I don't think I use, I can see I got a lot of links when I advertised in Pod News. I got, what's my date range here? Probably January. Yeah, this is January. So let me go back to December, see if we get better numbers. But I just like it because it's easy. I can go in and see, are things up or down? Are we, so I can see over here, if I go sources, it says, all right, 168 visitors or 511 views were direct, 232 were organic, and 11 came from social. So here again, when I say social is a trickle, social is kind of a trickle, but I've gone down now and I can see how many are on a desktop and a phone and a tablet. I can see where 40 of these are from Hong Kong. And I'm like, that's that. What's funny is I set up an event where you can basically monitor people clicking on a button. And I went to see how I did this last night and I don't remember, but I'm glad I have events. But it's just, for me, this is all I need. If I go, wait a minute, let me see just the people from the US, I click on the US and now I can see, let's go up to, let's switch to a different site. Let's go to, so on the screen, what we're seeing is, I see how many people, how many views, the average time on site, which is not good, 1.42 and a bounce rate of 72. Eek. But bounce rate's a weird thing. In some cases, if people come for one question and I answer their question and they leave, that's a bounce, but I worked very well for them. But you can see here again are all my refers. Okay, so now let's do the United States. and I can come down here again. Substack, that's my newsletter. Twitter, ChatGPT, interesting. But if I go over here, email is, I'm not tagging these as well as I should. Yeah, I can't see, but I just like it because it's simple. It's $15 a month. So it's not, depending on your budget, it's not super expensive, but it's not super cheap. I just like it because it gives me what I want. I don't, with Google Analytics, you have to go in and then click on the admin and then find your site and then go to the page and then click the thing and then I'm just like, okay. Now, granted, it's free, but I'm just like, to me, just the fact that I can log in and go, are my numbers up or down? Where are people coming from? That's all I need. And it's just, I get that in 2 seconds. So
you can set up Google Analytics to do that too. It doesn't have to be as complicated. I mean, I use a very stripped down, through WordPress. You put a code in. I think there's a plugin to help you put a code in, go around. It starts gathering. The reports have gotten fairly efficient. You could go in and kind of see there's a real-time report that's there. So it takes a little bit of work. You're going to spend a half a day figuring it out, getting it set up, regardless of who you go with. You'll have to put some code on your website. You can pay for it, pay for advanced reporting. And Google's, again, I think we're at the tail end of this. Like, I don't know if I would spend too much time figuring the old school stuff of it out. I think we're headed into a new realm with AI. I'd spend more time looking at it.
I watched this guy's channel. I think his name is Linus. But anyway, he does a lot of reviews of AppSumo stuff. And there were some SEO tools. And he said, well, I'm going to buy this because I used to spend basically almost $200 on SEO stuff. And he goes, and I'm kind of just going to let those go because I don't care anymore about Google. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And he's he's just like, but he goes, we need to, instead of search engine optimization, it just needs to be search everywhere optimization. So I'm surprised. I don't get a ton, but whatever I'm looking at, last month I got 45 visits from DuckDuckGo. And I just added myself to DuckDuckGo like, I don't know, 3 months ago. And there was another search engine that is kind of like, well, that's nothing compared to Google. I'm like, pennies make dollars, But there's also Plausible. That's an open source because some people don't like Google Analytics because it's Google and they're the devil and they're going to, get all this information. So if you don't want Google Analytics integrates with really anything will integrate with Podpage. But you can integrate Analytics. You can do Fathom. You can do Plausible. And I know some people like Plausible and Fathom because they're not Google and, they're not going to spy on my visitors and all that other fun stuff. But it's not free and Google Analytics is. So it's something to keep in mind. Going back to links and Substack, Stephanie says if you add Spotify through the player, it shows up on the blog with Substack, so folks can listen right there. I might have to play with that because what I do is I put a link to the episode so people can click on it and go to the website, and there's also a link there to follow the show. But if I could put a player right there, that might be doing that. Now here's another fun question from Ralph.
Well, hold on before we go on to that. GEO, generative engine optimization, is the new term for SEO. So you're going to hear GEO start replacing SEO, I think, in the next 5 years. As far as what we're doing, generative engine optimization is the new term for this. Just so if you see that GEO, that's what they're talking about.
Well, the other thing I saw in this video, they're talking about how what's the generation after us? Gen X? No, we're Gen X.
We're Gen Xers, millennials.
Yeah. But younger than that. What's after millennial?
Gen Z.
Gen Z hates ads. Like they're like, I'm melting, it's ads. And so when you go to Google, and if you don't get a Gemini result, it's nothing but ads. And that's when I went, wow, Google won the search war by delivering amazing results. And now their results just suck. They're awful. And I was like, somebody needs to pull their head out of their butt over there. But yeah. So we're moving on to our next subject now. AI, Mr. Descript. because I have AI put in the markers, so we'll see
Can
how
you say,
well.
"Hey, Descript"? That's what you
Yeah,
should. Hey,
yeah.
Descript. Change the subject.
So, Jim, I'm going to let you take this one first because I have an opinion, but I don't want to influence the jury.
Okay.
All right. So Ralph is saying I was thinking about buying email lists as well, so you can then blast them and point them
Yeah.
towards your podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Some people don't like that, so you have to be careful. You could get you could get blacklisted pretty fast
Yeah.
doing that. I'm not saying you shouldn't. If you get a good solid list, this is where a niche comes in. And I think even going back to our YouTube comments from earlier, YouTube works really, really well when you're very, very specific, and then when when your title is done well and the description and that stuff and the content inside it, we know they're absolutely listening. I think with email lists, it's the same thing. You just know what you're getting, but make sure you're getting a list that is just super narrow. And I think the more narrow it is, the smaller it's going to be, and that's actually better. And then make sure whatever you're sending them, it can't be in multiple fonts. It can't have crappy graphics. It can't
Yeah.
look like spam. Like and get right to the point and I think be very transparent with people on this. Otherwise, you may never get a chance to talk to them again. Little risky. I don't know, Dave. What say you?
Well, Jeff is on my page. I think creating a better lead magnet would be a better ROI. I had a guy stop by the chat on School of Podcasting, and he didn't really understand what a podcast was. He had one video on YouTube, and he's like, so he thought he was doing a podcast. So I had to, put on the curmudgeon hat and go, well, you're a YouTuber, and that's good. Definitely get to be on YouTube. And he's like, well, how do I promote this? And I'm like, well, social. I go, get an email list. He's like, oh, that's great. He goes, I bought a list, and I think he said it was 39,000 email lists. And I go, and is the plan then to just point people at the video that you have? And he's like, yes. And I go, so you're going to send people things that they didn't ask for from somebody that they don't know. I go, what do you call that? And he's like, well, spam. And I go, yeah. So your marketing strategy is to spam your potential audience. And he's like, yeah, I guess so. And I go, how do you feel about spammers? And he's like, well, he's a salesman. So he's kind of like, it's part of the deal. Like, you just have to spam people. And I was like, well, here's a better way of looking at that is to say, start a podcast, deliver value, put out a lead magnet that people want. And now the people that are on your email list are people that want to be on your email list. They want more stuff from you. And he's like, okay. And he's like, but how long does it take to build an audience? And I go, in my travels, about 3 years. And he's like, wifey isn't going to like that. And I said, please tell me you didn't quit your day job. So luckily he didn't. But I've just heard back, oh man, this is probably 15 years ago. So I need to probably go back and test the waters. But I know back then when people were really like when email was the thing and people were buying lists, I just heard all sorts of negative things, that half the people on the list were crap. And, that it's a weird way to, like, I don't know, start a relationship by just spamming somebody. Like, there's going to be that person's like, I'm so glad you sent me this email. But I'm like, I mean, I literally, thanks to Ray, mentioned that I had 20,000 unread messages in my Gmail. And so I did a filter, and I said everything before April of 2024, if it's unopened, ditch it. So I now have, as I look, I have 26 unread messages, but I've already deleted probably 150 emails today. And I keep going in now. I'm trying to go in and unsubscribe, or if it's spam, I will actually mark it as spam, because I'm like, well, don't do that. Yeah, Coach says, patience versus spam. Do good work and results will follow. Yeah. So
I agree.
The guy I'm sure he's a nice guy and loves his children, but I was like, you and I differ on how to build an audience.
Yeah. So, well, and you ask if you're going to buy a list, you have to ask when this list made.
Yeah.
Because if it was made even 3 years ago, chances are a lot of those email addresses will bounce. I mean, trust me, this is, I spend a lot of time finding our customers whose emails have bounced. that 2021 and 22 was everybody was just changing employers and emails. It was crazy. Now it's settled down in the last year. Those kinds of things have stayed the same. A lot of people are keeping their emails, but yeah, listen, I spent 2 hours yesterday on the phone with my customers. That's a magnet.
That's
when
it.
you reach out to two customers and you give them some time and you talk to them individually, they're going to tell people, and that's, to me, that's more valuable than paying for any email list.
I had another person, and I use a free thing. It's talk. I think it's TAWK.TO, if I remember right. That's the thing I use for my chat.
Yeah,
and I had
I
had somebody stop by, and I'm answering their question and blah blah blah, and they're like, "Is this a bot, or is this like AI?" And I go, "No, this is Dave Jackson. Watch, I'll make a typo." And then I did, and they're like, "Holy cow, this is cool!" And so to me, that's one of the things that, because I don't know about you, last night I was trying to use Substack's AI to get a question, because I went to chat and I'm like, hey, how does somebody cancel a subscription to my newsletter? Because I had somebody email me and they said, hey, my subscription just went through, nothing personal, but like, can I get a refund? I'm not going to do that this year. And I'm like, no, not a problem. I said, I'll go look into it. And then like 3 hours later, I'm like, okay, I got time to go look into this. And I went to go find the guy's email in my inbox, and it just got washed away. I'm Googling, I'm searching in my Gmail, like Substack subscription. I cannot find this guy thing. So my last newsletter started off with, hey, if this was you, here's how to do it.
That's interesting way to do support.
But
like, I lost your info.
Yeah,
hopefully this email makes it to you.
Yeah, because I know he's reading it, but the Substack chat thing was not helpful, and people just need to, like, I get it, but no, thank you. Jeff has go ahead.
Dave, to your point though, I do this on LinkedIn all the time, is I send direct messages to folks, and when they reply back to me, I try to get that as a response to them as fast as humanly possible. Like, because, and then I get the comment all the time, like, what, wow, thank you for, like, I appreciate the speed on this. I thought it was going to take days. Most people now, I think, when you send somebody an email, I think you think a couple days, not 15 minutes. Right.
Yeah.
And so you want to wow some of your listeners, make sure you have systems set up and you're responsive to your email, because they're emailing you.
Yeah,
email,
absolutely.
Or whatever. Yeah.
Well, we got some great comments here from Jeff and Chris. Says another hack, instead of buying stuff, is to target your Facebook ads for your podcast to because you can say people that, on an iPhone, right? So, they have Apple Podcasts, they'll listen to podcasts and then target the right platform, such as Apple, and direct them to the iTunes sign-up page. So, and you could do that, that to me makes more sense. It's more targeted. It's people that have a phone. You know what I mean? These emails might be from, Mildred McCumpin, and she's 97, and doesn't even have a flip phone because I hate technology. I'm just not a fan of the email list. Chris says tactical marketing wins. Buying subs, followers, and email lists does nothing but build fake social proof. And I will add, feed the ego. Look at me. I have, 50 million people. I'm like, yeah. And when you send a thing into that Facebook group, how many people reply? It's like, yeah, I mean, and almost always fake stuff gets busted. You know what I mean? I remember when, for a while, my favorite is there was a group that on Friday, I think it was Feedback Friday or whatever it was, but they would go and leave reviews for each other in Apple. And it was so funny because you'd go in and you're like, well, that's funny. On August 3rd, this guy got 9 different reviews and they all say, great show, love the host.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck? So we can see that. Ralph says, maybe I just need to hire a social media manager since I really don't have time to do that. Maybe. Yeah, that's a tough, we have hired a few marketing people at Podpage, and that's a weird game because you're trying to see results, but it's a trickle. So that's where that's where I am now forcing myself. Anytime I link to anything, I go to Fathom, build a link, copy paste. I have a text expander that I just go in, I just type in #build, and it takes me right to that website. I go, this is where I'm sending them. Here's the medium, here's the source, here's the campaign, copy, paste. It takes all of 5 seconds. But now Chris has a great point. Chris Nessie, AI can certainly help you. That is something I've definitely, almost everything I write now, except my newsletter last night, went through. I write it and then go here, Chat GPT, and I have this amazing prompt. You ready? Here's my prompt. I'm writing a newsletter for podcasters. Here it is, quotation marks, paste. Make this better. That's it.
Yeah.
I just go, make this better. And it's like, here's a more concise version. And I'm like, you know what? That is better. And as long as it doesn't, I usually have some sort of personal story. I'm like, don't take Dave out of the Dave newsletter. But, Coach Dave, integrity matters. Everyone sing it with me from the great poet Neil Peart, right? All this machinery making modern music can still be brokenhearted. One likes to believe in the freedom of music. Something it's all about your honesty. Yeah, your honesty. There's something about integrity in there. Shatters the illusions of integrity. I need to go play the song. Yeah. And that's it.
The best songs are breakup songs. That's for sure, right? I mean, you just got to go through a breakup.
Just ask Taylor Swift. Yeah.
Every song he's ever written is a breakup song.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna, to your point, Dave, as you're talking about using ChatGPT, I'll throw in, because it knows a little bit about me, right? The version I have knows I've fed it some information, and I'll say, how would I answer this question? And it'll surprisingly, I don't use it all, and sometimes it's completely wrong. But how would I answer this question? And there's some quick ways. I think there's some quick ways to look at. If you're working a full-time job, you're too busy to answer your customers' questions, and you kind of think, hey, I'm just going to create a podcast and I hope they listen. I just want to do spray and pray. You can absolutely go that direction and just do indirect marketing. That's what I would call indirect, right? In a lot of ways. And try to gather some folks that don't have a relationship to you. Can that be done? Totally. Could you hire somebody to do that? Totally. You'll pay for it. You may get some results that way. If that's what you want to do, I think you're headed down the right path. Get a firm to help you do this, and then they'll take over all of those things for you. Now, I don't know if that makes a very engaged podcast. If you're not looking for engagement, then I think you're going down the right. You're kind of going down the right path. I think a more engaged podcast, though, is where I think the podcaster is got time to interact with their audience. So, but can it be done? Totally
yeah.
Can be.
Chris is saying maybe for a future episode of the School of Podcasting, what AI tools are people using? That's not a bad idea. I know for social, what I'm hearing, and again, it's one of those things where you're like, is this true, or is it just the latest audio meme that people are regurgitating? But I'm hearing that we need to be more social on social. And by meaning, just talk to people on Twitter and X and Blue Chat and Facebot and whatever else you're using. But that takes time. It's one of those things. I'm lucky I'm really bored already with let me write this once on Twitter. Okay, let me log into Threads, copy paste. Let me go into Blue Sky. Okay, copy paste. I'm like, that drives that. Look, I know Elon is the devil and et cetera, and I'm like, yeah, but you walked away from thousands of followers. I'm like, that never makes sense to me. I'm like, just block what you don't like, but whatever. Let's go back to square one. Coach, I'm moving on to a new topic. Descript. Yes. Coach Dave, how do you effectively convert casual listeners into loyal subscribers? This is where I would insert the Jeopardy music. How do you do that? First of all, there's a great book by Pat Flynn. somebody go Google that. It's like something listeners. It's a pretty good book, but he talks about that, how you start from nobody knows you to now they kind of have heard of your name. Now they're a podcast listener. Now they're on your email list, and now they buy something. There's like a pyramid of that. And it's not a bad book. I have a autographed copy somewhere, but it's not in my bookcase. I don't know where it is. But how do you do that? That's the question, I guess.
Yeah, I think you be there and provide extraordinary customer service, whatever that is, and solve a problem that couldn't be solved by anybody else, whether that's through a product or you would do it in person. I think that's how you take a casual listener. I mean, think about the times you've purchased something and you get it home and it's incredible. You're like, oh my gosh, this thing is great. I mean, I'll my Mac Mini is one of those things. After I got the Mac Mini, I'm just like, now nobody from Apple contacted me personally. I don't have any relationships there. I mean, it could have been I went into the Apple store and some genius gave me the best customer service I've ever had. And now I'm loyal to that. Or think about the restaurant you went to, and the wait staff was amazing, right? Way beyond your expectations. So you have to create some kind of experience that blows their expectations out of the water, whether that's through a product or something you've created or a video that you have. I don't know if you can. You have to be giving that kind of service all the time, and then there's this magic moment where it matches to a customer, and all of a sudden you walk away and you're like, this place is amazing. We have this kind of relationship with this pizza place here in town called Backlot here in Omaha. We just love that place. We know the staff. We started to, we know their names. They know us. It's like Cheers, right? You're trying to get the Cheers experience. But you gotta be on the ball providing that kind of service all the time. And you just have to, sometimes that's going to fall on deaf ears and you're thinking, man, nobody's listening. And that one time somebody gets it, and they're like, oh, this is amazing to you. So I think you have to either be creating service that's amazing or creating content that is amazing.
Yeah.
And then get it to the right people, right? Get it in there. And by the way, you may not have tons of people who need that solution, right? There may only be 50 people on the planet who will get what you're talking about.
Chris Nessie has gone JFK on us. One's mindset needs to be, what can I do for or give my audience rather than what can my audience do for me?
Yes, there you go.
We do podcasting not because we can, but because it's hard. And because we had,
I like it.
By the end of the year, we will launch a podcast on the moon. Yes. So, yeah, but that's really it.
Go to the moon.
Go to the moon. Yeah. Todd the Gator says community. Thank you, Rich Graham, by the way. Is my link done yet? Nope. The book is called Superfans. Dave is over here making an affiliate link in our good friend Genius Link. But that's a good book. I know I have a signed copy around here somewhere from Pat. I met him I've known him for a few years. But I was at some place and he signed a copy for me. So it's a good book. And Pat's a good guy. It's weird though, because that's a guy I think because he started interviewing his customers and he kind of changed his format. And so this is one of those things where when you change things, not everybody's going to like it. And so he started interviewing people that he had worked with, which is a great strategy, by the way, right? Because it's a testimonial. It's, look this guy did. He helped me do this and that. But it wasn't the same thing. And I kind of like, I still, it's funny, I'm still subscribed to income, passive income, smart passive income. But I haven't listened in a while. But anyway, the link I just threw into the chat is an affiliate link. Oh, it's funny because I copied the link from Genius Link. If you're not using Genius Link, $6 a month, and because here's the fun thing: if Amazon saw that I just put that into the chat, they would probably kick me out because they're Amazon and they don't like to make sense. And so keep that in mind. Let me go back to the chat room. Some good things in here. Randy has mentioned this. I got to throw this in here. So, Descript, we are changing topics again. Mr. Descript, Mr. AI, please put a chapter here. The founder of Anchor finally revealed how they were able to get so many podcasts inserted into Apple Podcasts for users automatically. They paid college students to add the shows manually.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
Because we're like, what kind of API did they do? And Apple's like, honestly, we don't have a thing. So they would just...
That's Mechanical Turk, right? Mechanical Turk. Remember that when you could pay? You ever heard of Mechanical Turk? A couple of years ago, it was a way to get a service done this way, and you could pay a group of people as a service you would tell them what you wanted, and off they'd go. And it was people doing it. You know, we often think these are software programs or somebody. They got the API or whatever. And we just, come to find out they probably paid college students, $5 an entry. Get these folks in there, get them done. Right. And it's brilliant. They got it done. I mean, they absolutely, when you follow a business model like this, where they paid to create interest that then was bought by Spotify. And I'm sure those guys made tons of cash off this. Now, did those college students do it for free? No. Did they spend a lot of their own money making this happen? Probably, to get it done. This is where I'd always fall down, Dave, in a small business, is getting things started takes an enormous amount of money. And I don't like to spend my money. And so to make money, you got to spend money and lose a lot of it. Sometimes you do things and they don't work.
I remember
you go out of business.
The first few years of Amazon, they were losing money hand over fist because everything they were doing was new and they had to build it. And it'd be like, well, there's this website, they're selling books, but last year they lost, $400,000. You're like, wait, what? That's kind of weird. Todd the Gator, going back to Pat Flynn, listen to the Superfans audiobook. Great listen, and I love Pat Flynn. He taught me how to create a brand on YouTube. Yep, good guy. And the other thing is, Pat Flynn is hilarious. I was very lucky. I spoke at an event in Australia, and it was me, Pat Flynn, Jordan Harbinger, the guy from Webinar Ninja, whose name is escaping me. There are a bunch of people there, and Pat Flynn is hilarious, and it's funny. And he's not like super dirty. He's just funny. And I'm like, dude, you got to let your humor come through your podcast. He's really, really, really good guy. Chris also says, I also recommend Gary Vee's book, Day Trading. I might have to check that out. I haven't listened to Gary Vee in a while, but I always enjoyed him.
Malcolm Gladwell is also doing some work on this. He calls them super spreaders, but which may or may not be a great term at this point.
No.
But, with COVID, but there are connectors, but his whole concept is in your audience, there are a number of people who will go and promote you, and they'll just you need to find them, support them, and then feed them. And they'll be the ones, and I'm not one of those. I don't, although that may not be true. I always tell people, hey, have you heard the latest kind of thing here? Like I'm telling you, like we're doing this, right?
Yeah.
You now know that Malcolm Gladwell's talking about this as well. And so I think sometimes keys finding and identifying your most active, engaged listeners, and then giving them what they need to be able to spread it like a virus. Not a good way to say it.
There you go. Ray is.
That's what he says. That's what he says. It's his words, not mine.
Yeah. Well, also, let me go back to Daniel had a point about the whole, Spotify thing. Daniel J. Lewis from the Audacity to Podcast and the Future of Podcasting. That still doesn't confirm whether Anchor used iTunes Site Manager to do it quickly and bypass Apple's moderation. There's a guy I have to start. If you follow me on Facebook, I've been sharing this. There's a guy in the music business, I think. I don't know where he is. I need to like kind of dig a little deeper because the stuff he says is amazing. Just how crappy Spotify is to musicians. Like they bought a bunch of royalty-free music, and it was for like ambiance, kind of like quiet study music, something where you're not going, what band is this? I got to follow them, right? It's just kind of music in the background. And they made their own playlist and then promoted their own playlist. Why? Because when people listen to that music, they don't have to pay anybody. And I was like, Spotify, like you suck. Just, and that's, so there are many of the things I have to do. I'm not sure. Steph wants to know, is Malcolm Gladwell's book out now? Super Spreader.
I'm gonna put the link to one of the YouTube interviews that he did. I haven't dug in on this very much. I had a friend share this with me, and I think the book is called Tipping Point.
Okay.
I think. So do some digging. Yeah. Revenge of the Tipping Point, Overstories, Super Spreaders, and the Rise of Social Engineering. I will throw that here. I'll get that link. I'll throw that one to Amazon as well for you guys if you want to. By the way, that link, if you click on that Amazon link, that may be an affiliate. I just grabbed it from my thing.
Yeah.
So just be careful.
Chris Stone says Spotify has been accused of creating fake artists for many years. Somehow they've been able to circumvent it. And that's, I forget what I was watching, but one of the things that's just, I wonder where we're going, not to get super deep, but just the fact that we have the internet and we can all talk to each other and we don't have to get our news from Walter Cronkite. You know what I mean? And we can kind of, I don't know, do our own research. And sometimes we find out that people aren't really doing the right thing. And I'm like, how long is that going to last before the people, the elite, the lizard people and everybody else, shut down the internet? I'm like, they're going to, eventually they're going to be like, what's that one thing? There's something 32 in Congress that says Facebook isn't responsible for the content on it and Google isn't responsible for it and things like that. And every now and then, if they want like something from Facebook, all the Congress people have to do is go, hey, you know that revision 232 that says you're not responsible? Yeah, we could get rid of that. And that would be the end of like the internet. I'm like, that's really interesting. Jeff says Revenge of the Tipping Point is the follow-up to Tipping Point. Son of Tipping Point coming next year. So yeah, interesting stuff. Well, you know what else is interesting? Speaking of super fans, our awesome super fans, here we go. There's the button. And you can be an awesome super fan by going to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. We appreciate everybody over there, and there's links to their shows and such. I just realized I need to go see, because Randy originally signed up under his music show, and now he's doing Bible Bites, and I need to see if I've updated the awesome supporter page to show that. But anyway, the show is brought to you by theschoolofpodcasting.com, where you get step-by-step courses, one-on-one coaching, and that is unlimited, and an awesome community. You can use the coupon code COACH when you sign up and save on either a monthly or yearly subscription. And we use Podpage. If you go out to askthepodcastcoach.com, we're using Podpage, and you can check it out by going to trypodpage.com. That is my affiliate link, and thank you to Brendan Mulligan for not making me stop being an affiliate when I became an employee. I was like, oh, that's cool. And we use Ecamm to stream. You can check it out at askthepodcastcoach.com/Ecamm, and Ecamm is spelled with 2 M's because it's good. And hey, if you need more Jim Cullison, well, it's really easy. Just go over to theaverageguy.tv and check out his show, Home Gadget Geeks. Always a good time over there. And yay, Randy says I did update it, so that's good to see. I thought so, but I just wanted to make sure. And now I can't get Randy's comment out of the way, so I can go to the next slide, but I can hit, nope, I was going to say, I bet I can hit, there we go. Technology is just not my friend today. I don't know what the deal is, but it's time for the Wheel O' Names. Yes. So will it be Jody Kringle? Will it be John Muntz? Will it be Glenn the Geek Hebert? Ask Ralph? All sorts of fun people on the wheel, and when we click go, it spins round and round and round. I always feel like a rebel when I do this because, we're breaking. Is it Glenn again? Glenn won like 3 weeks ago. But there it is. Glenn the Geek Hebert over at horseradionetwork.com. Jim, would you like to do a Glenn imitation?
But don't be boring.
But thanks to all of our awesome supporters. Again, you can see them over at askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And if you think about it, hey, did this show, I'm seriously clicking on the next button. There we go. Did this show save you some time? Did it save you money? Did it save you headaches? Did it keep you educated? Well, then maybe you should go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome and become an awesome supporter. Because again, you don't have to be a $20 supporter. There are much less, there are other options available. One thing I did want to point out, because see where Ross Brand is on the wheel of names, his new book of predictions where he asked everybody for predictions. And I know he asked me, I don't know if I got mine in, but nonetheless, I saw everybody else promoting it. And so check out Ross's book. It's like I probably have one in my case, but it's like something predictions of podcasting, blah, blah, blah. And mine has been for everybody that CPMs will continue to go down because, and I just go look at banner ads on websites. Yeah. Banner ads used to have a great price because there weren't that many websites. And then everybody got a website and the price of banner ads went goosh. And I'm like, so now that it's all, now that everybody can get ads into their show, the price of CPMs are, I'm not a genius to figure that out. I'm pretty sure if history repeats itself, so Stephanie is a bookworm. She says, hey, thanks for the book recommendations. Now to balance all our business, if you have any good fiction. I'm not a fiction guy. I've never been a fiction. I think the last fiction book I read was Charlotte's Web, like when I was 7. I've always been very much wow. I'm trying to think, Clifford the Red Dog. I've always been biographies and business books, and books about podcasting, which I guess is a book about business and things of that nature. Do we want to get into some podcast drama?
Before we do, yes,
yeah.
I do. But before we do, interesting. I was thinking as we were talking about podcast stats, I do have Google Analytics on my site.
Oh, cool.
You always kind of wonder when you mention me here, and I do my wave.
Yeah.
And does anybody actually click on that? And the answer is no. Not one of you in the chat room. I think we have 30 of you. Not one of you were engaged enough in what Dave said at the moment to actually head out to theaverageguy.tv. We have real-time stats over there. And not one of you did it. Now, should I despair? No, because there you go. The repetition of that is what matters, right? You hear it over and over and over and over again. So should I despair that oh man, Dave mentions it and nobody goes there? No, because it's repetition that matters at that point. And much like based on a true story, that conjures up, if you see a movie based on a true story, you think of Dan. I'm hoping at some point when you're thinking of gadgets, you go, oh yeah, Jim over at theaverageguy.tv. So that's a real-time, I think that's a real-time example of how not to read too much into your stats.
Well, and it's interesting how eventually people, they take over that topic in your brain. So when I hear about horses, I'm like, oh, I need to tell Glenn.
Yeah.
And when I hear about, any kind of home gadgety stuff, I'm like, I wonder if Jim's talking about this. Or there's a woman that does the herpes show. So every time I hear about herpes, I think about her.
Are you hearing about herpes a lot?
No, but if there's something on, the news, there's new herpes simplex 12, I'll be like, oh, I wonder if I interviewed her years ago. But there are people that just, I'm like, oh, that's like Michael O'Neill, who does the Solopreneur Hour, if I remember right. Great drummer. And he was really into pickleball. And so every now and then, if something comes up about pickleball, I'm like, oh, I should probably tell Michael about that. So that's one of the things by having the stuff repeat over and over that you kind of like wrestling. If I hear anything about wrestling, I'm going to go, talk to Matt Talk Online. He just commented in the. Thank you, Jim. Oh my God. I see his face. Oh my God. Yeah. So yeah, Ralph says, good God, man, herpes. Yeah. There's, I think it's Living with Herpes was the show. And I discovered her via Libsyn. And I was like, I want to talk to you about your show. And she just said, look, it's the epitome of information you can't get anyplace else, because you're not going to be at like Thanksgiving and go, hey, Uncle Carl, have you ever had the clap? Like, it's just not a conversation that typically comes up. But these people, and she called it their super secret probation, double probation Facebook group. And they're talking about treatments and all sorts of other stuff that you just, because, you know, there's kind of a negative connotation to having herpes, which is sad because, you know, sometimes you feel like a nut and sometimes you don't. And you go, oh, probably should have, you know, put a raincoat on that thing. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, that is not the right screen. But in theory, if I do this, do you now see to leave or not to leave?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is the drama. Yeah. So this time last year, I started a podcast with my two best friends. I add they're my only real friends left. Most of the ones have moved to other cities. The podcast has been a lot of work, and we probably currently only have around 400 to 500 weekly listeners. We do it weekly every Sunday for about 2.5 hours. So the good news is you're spending 2.5 hours with your friends. Friend A and I would work together every day, and he really, really hates his job. He often comes into the pod. Oh, I hate when people call it the pod. But anyway, the pod, quite grumpy because of it. It can be a real down buzz. But in saying that, the pod probably means the most to him, as he sees it as a potential way out of his job. It was his idea to start it. Okay, maybe, but that's again, okay, let's continue on. Friend B, I've known for 10 plus years. His family is mega rich. Like, think of the richest person you know and multiply it by 20. And because of that, he's quite lazy and pretty hard to motivate. We do the pod at his house in his garage, which is about the extent of his contribution. He doesn't really work a whole lot, so he has a lot of downtime, which causes conflict, as myself and friend A do basically everything, and we somewhat resent that he doesn't contribute enough. Here's where I'm stuck. I'm an influencer in my country. Disclaimer, I hate that word. And that makes me an okay amount of money via influencer campaigns, etc. But because I'm either working on my job or the podcast the past year, my page has been somewhat neglected and lost a bit of the engagement. We also had a few arguments together over this podcast, and I get really anxious that the pod is going to ruin my relationships with the last two friends that I have left where I live. I spent the holidays thinking over and over what I want to do this year and whether or not I can keep going with the podcast. I enjoy listening to it, and I think we have some really, really funny episodes, but it is just so draining sometimes. I'm thinking about talking to the guys and seeing what they think if I were to just do 1 week on 1 week off. So basically go from weekly to every other week and do every 2 weeks. And they do the second week without me. But I know if I do this and it doesn't work, I'll be the a-hole who killed the pod. Anyway, stuck in a tough spot, wondering if anyone has gone through anything similar working with friends. Sticky, isn't it? It's like, ew. This is, I probably got in trouble yesterday. I was in a Facebook group, and this woman said, I had this interview. The audio was horrible, and I'm getting over my perfectionism, and I went ahead and released it, even though it's really bad. And everybody's like, good for you. Wait, perfect is the enemy of not done or whatever it is, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, no. That's your brand. Don't put out crappy audio. And I said, you have to have either A, the awkward conversation and ask this person to do it again, or just say, hey, after I listened to this, your audio didn't match up. But that's an awkward conversation. And I think that would be my advice here, is just say, hey guys, it's a new year. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. So, lazy rich dude, what are you going to be doing this year? And just, I do this at Podpage. There's a list of things I do every day. And the reason they're there is if I don't do them and I continue to not do them, my guess would be I would get fired. It's setting expectations. And it sounds like they didn't. I don't know, Jim, what do you think when you hear this story?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I mean, there's times you can. Well, first of all, it's a miracle. I mean, you and I have been doing this a long time together, and it's a miracle. We've never had a battle. We've never been mad at each other.
Mm-mm.
There's never been a moment where it's been like, I don't know, Dave.
Yeah.
You know, you know. It's unique, to be honest. In most cases, doing this kind of work together just creates conflict, and it's either going to make it or it's not. And then I don't think everything is meant to go on forever. It's probably a good idea that you put some. I think if you're going to do this with friends, you put some limits on, like, hey, let's do this for a year, and then in 6 months or 2 months before, we'll reevaluate. And it's okay if people say they don't want to do it. Like, you got to give people an out. I think that's a smart way to go about doing things like that. I spent a lot of time with college students, helping them in team formations when they're putting new teams together, and they create a charter, project charter. Maybe a good idea to put together kind of a charter or rules of engagement for, hey, we're going to do this podcast thing together. This is how it's going to work. Listen, our charter is Dave owns everything, and I'll do anything Dave tells me to do. That's the way this charter works. Like, let's just be really, really clear. I'm here for Dave. I'm here to be the color commentator. And so, that's the way it works for me. But I think there's some, getting most of those things out in the open in advance, and knowing, anytime you do anything with anybody, it could flame out at the end. And I heard some worry, like, my only two friends left, and you kind of like, well, I'd ask the question, why you only have two?
Yeah.
maybe there's some things going on where you're a little rough around the edges, right? Maybe you're driving some people away too.
Well, the other thing is, the one guy hates his job and is looking at the podcast as maybe a way to get out. Yeah, and I'm like, that's a tall order, maybe. But you want people with the same motivations. I know the last band I was in, well, not the last, but the best band I was in, we all wanted to be the best band in Akron, but we knew we were not moving to Nashville or someplace like that. This is a hobby, but we want to be professional. We want to be good. And we want to make people happy and blah, blah, blah. So we all knew that. And it just, sometimes we have people that are like, well, no, man, we got to make more money. And it's like, and we're just doing it for fun. I think I made $50 a gig if I was lucky, but it was fun. And, having people, my favorite was, this drunk guy, man. He's like, you guys are the best thing to come out of Akron since Devo. And I'm like, is that a compliment? I guess.
Wait a minute. Devo came out of Akron?
Yeah, Devo. We got Devo. Joe Walsh was from Kent. This guy named LeBron James, you may have heard of him. We got a couple people.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
He's a big deal for sure.
Chris says, it sounds like this person is afraid of losing friends. What is more important, your friendship or your podcast? Typically, they end up finding someone else and remain better friends. Yeah, that's what I said about going back to the lady who was like, I'm going to go ahead and put out this bad audio. I go, who would you rather piss off? The one person that was your guest or the, 400 people that are listening to your show? I go, in the end, these people are going to stick with you because, Gordon has it. The podcast prenup from Gordon Firemark. Recommend that to everybody. I'm like, because it's all fun and games until money shows up, and then it gets crappy. So, yes, there you go, Chris whip it good. So, talking about standing out, I'll tie Google or Devo into podcasting.
Ooh, I like it.
Devo has a song called Jocko Homo, and at the end, he just asks, "Are we not men?" And the band answers, "We are Devo." And he says, "Are we not men?" And they go, "DEVO." And they would do this live for like 20 minutes. Oh. And it's literally just a drum beat. It's like, boom, are we not men? We are Devo. Are we not men? DEVO. And the guitar's just going, ba-da-da-da. It's one note. It's the most annoying thing. And they said they did it just to annoy people. But they said everybody remembered them. And they said, but they remember the one time there was a book I was reading, and they said the guy actually pulled the plug on the band. Like he's like, okay, I've had, because it had gone on for DEV, and they're like, make it stop, mommy. Yeah. And he's just like, pulled the plug. And it's like, okay, there goes the PA. So
like in was it Forrest Gump when he's going up to speak at the platform in Washington and somebody pulls out all of that's Forrest Gump, isn't it?
I think
it
so.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pulls out all of it, cuts him off. They just cut off Debo.
Well, here's the weird thing where we don't know what's true anymore. I have seen trailers for Home Alone 3 with what looked like Macaulay Culkin. And I just saw a trailer for Forrest Gump 2 with Tom Hanks. And it shows him, because remember how he was always going back into history? And there was a clip and he was in these, monumental events. And I was like, I've not heard anything about this. The whole
post Jenny, right? So post Jenny.
And I think the kid that is playing his kid is the guy that just played Bob Dylan. Timothy Chalamet is his kid. So it's him and his kid's kind of like, that's your dad, And so it's this whole, that was the theme. It was, what's it like to be, the son of Gump? Yeah. So, but I saw that and I was like, that looks like it's real. But I'm like, is this just somebody with some sort of weird video thing? Because you would think if they were, like, I know they're making a Spinal Tap movie. That's in the process. So it's always kind of weird that, here we go. He says the best Forrest Gump story is in the second book when Forrest meets Tom Hanks on Letterman and calls him a jerk. Nice. Excellent. Coach Dave wanted to know if you can, I guess you could share your screen and I'll find a way to figure out how to put this. You want to know what you're using for the live stats.
It's just Google Analytics. That's just the plain Jane.
And I'm just I'm gonna throw this on top of us. I don't really care, or I can do this maybe. Clicking on solo. Nope. Can I drag here? We'll just drag and there we go. We'll just get rid of me.
Yeah. There you go. So you can come down. I can see there's two users from Dallas. Coach David asked, is it tracking by IP? Does it know if you refresh a bunch of times? They've built in some tracking to this so that you don't get multiple, like you can't just set a rhythm to go or somebody could inflate the numbers, that way. But looks like Longview, Texas, got one in Philadelphia, and Nancoke, is that how you pronounce that, out in Pennsylvania. Those have been a while. Those were these early ones here, and then you can see somebody came in that way. You can scroll out on the map if you want to see where these are coming in from. This is the cool real time tracking of it that's there, and then you've got some acquisition. Just in the overview tabs, you can kind of see this is broken down by the last 90 days. Now is what I keep, so you can get some idea of number of active users by date, where they're landing and such. You can go to the engagement overview and actually see the times per session that they're staying on there. I don't have monetization turned on, so that wouldn't do anything for me. And that's not totally true. I do have some monetization, so you can kind of see what they're doing. So pretty easy, a pretty easy setup. You need, I have WordPress. I don't know how it works. Now everybody's jumping in.
That's it.
In the real-time pages. Let's see, real-time overview. Let me go back to the map. Yeah, there we go. So fairly easy to set up a plugin for, I have WordPress. So a plugin on WordPress, and then give it a number. You have to create an account. I mean, it's not something you're going to do in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But Google Analytics, again, I think we're on the last days of this. You could set this up today if you wanted to, but I think we're in the last days.
Yeah.
So.
It makes you wonder, because it's just like, it's, and it's spooky, because we're like, well, how are people going to find us then? Well, we'll have to make really good content and ask people to tell their friends. We have to rely on word of mouth or advertising.
I think there'll be LLM manipulation, so you'll be able to influence the way the LLMs operate.
Yeah,
and you'll be able to buy. This is the crazy thing today. For the most part, I think generative AI is fairly fair. Those days are numbered. And they may already be over, just to be honest. And so I think in the future, you will buy, much like you buy Google ads today, or you buy the AdWords, or you buy the search results, or you buy those kinds of things. you'll buy influence on the LLM as it's creating the generative AI, so that your stuff gets favored to show up. That's what we're in for.
Yeah.
So be ready. Be ready.
I realize we're up against time. He says, looking at my Google Analytics, how do I trace page not found? I would go
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm not a guru on that, but I would just check. I'd go to their help section and look up like setting up a show, because somewhere in there it's looking for a website, and you need to and make sure it's the whole HTTPS : like the whole enchilada.
Yeah.
And it I'll see if I can't look up mine and see where it is, but
it's not plug and play. You're gonna spend a week or two figuring out all the things about it, and then it's gonna crawl your site and say, hey, there's some things you need to do differently to help us crawl better than what you're doing. So yeah, it's a whole thing in itself. I've got the basic setup, but haven't really dug too much into it.
Yeah, and once you get it set up to where it finds your show, then there is some sort of, it's either G or U number, and you copy and paste that into Podpage, and then we put in all the code that you have to copy and paste into your website. Same thing with a WordPress plugin. You put in this number, it puts in the JavaScript behind the scenes. With Podpage, you put in this number, it puts the JavaScript behind the scenes, and it'll start tracking it. But that's how, if you ever want to know how many people read my blog and how many people do this and how many, like, put some sort of analytics on there, and then you'll know. So, and then you can see, because it is handy to see how many, like what's the most popular post on the website. Maybe I should do more of that kind of stuff. So, because otherwise, you're just spitting it out there and you don't know what's working and what's not. So, Jim, what's coming up on Home Gadget Geeks?
Erin Lawrence from Tech Gadgets Canada. She's a big blogger up north, does a lot of tech gadget reviews, joins me. She reviewed 2 vehicles, like a smart vehicle and then a Lexus. Pretty great. I mean, but we talked about some new Bose earbuds. We talked about a new device you can grow lettuce in your home. Lettuce.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Check it out. It's available right now. That was the teaser. HomeGadgetGeeks.com.
There you go. On the School of Podcasting. Normally, the very first episode is how to launch. I haven't done one of those since 2021, but really not much has changed since then. So I'm bringing on Doc G, who's been on the show before. He wrote a book called The Purpose Code, and we're really looking at the mentality of podcasting and what it takes to kind of, because, there's all the technology and all the content, but in the end, a lot of times what messes us up is our brain, and we get stuck. So it's a good book. It comes out in 3 days. And so this will come out the day before the book comes out. But I had him on and I said, look, I'm not sure this is a good fit. And I said, so I've known him. I go, I'll do the interview, but I reserve the right not to publish this if I don't think this is going to fit. And after the interview, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely publishing this, because it's some really good stuff, again, about the mental side of podcasting. So that's coming out on the School of Podcasting. Thanks to Mark over at podcastbranding.co and Dan over at basedonatruestorypodcast.com. Thank you to the awesome chat room, as always. And we will see you next week with another episode of Ask the Podcast Coach.